Individual credit scores will soon be a reality if CTOS has its way. But take heart, good things like better benefits, lower interest rates and easier access to credit will come to those with higher scores. CTOS Chief Executive Eric Chin explains. Eric, thanks for joining us. Just over 2 years ago, I think September 2014, the private equity firm Credo bought out a 70% stake in CTOS. I think they paid 215 million ringgit for it. Quite a good valuation for, I think at the time, a 25-year-old company. I think at the time also, the buyer said that the business would grow at something like 20% on a year-on-year basis. And the company did about 60 million odd of revenue in those days. Where are you on those metrics at this point in time?
Well, I think if we were to look at post 2014, in 2014, right, when Credo came in as the majority and controlling stakeholders, right, from 2015, right, till to date, I would say that we have made significant progress, right, in our transformation journey. If we talk about in terms of top line, right, I think if we were to compare between 2014 to 2015, right, that was exactly right after the buy-in to the organization, right? I think we grew close to about 12% from 2014 in terms of top line, in terms of the revenue, right? And this year itself, right, if we were to compare projections for 2016 versus what we did in 2015, right, we are projecting quite a comfortable further growth, right, of approximately about 20%, right? So it's pretty much on target to what we have been projecting, and I think some of the transformation, initiatives, right, that we have planned out, right, has worked out fine, yeah.
Okay, so when I saw the newspaper headlines at the time, I think Credo talked about how they would grow the business by more than 20% a year for the next maybe 5 to 10 years. So in year one, you did about 12%. This year, you say you might be doing about 18, 20%. So you might have, is that true? Is it true to say that you missed the targets for the first 2 years post-acquisition?
Well, I think we talk about the first year post-acquisition, right? I think the focus, right, was very much in putting in place the framework, right, and what we call the House of CTOS, right, which the target is essentially all the way to 2020, right, and it essentially has 3 major pillars, right. I think number 1 is growing, right, our size of wallet, right, in one of our key segments, which is the banking segment, right. Number 2 is expanding, right, our number 1 segment today, right, which is the SME market, right. And thirdly, putting in place a new revenue stream, right? So that would mean very much building our strengths in certain verticals, right?
Okay, so basically you haven't really begun your consumer side of the business yet. You're mainly on banks and SMEs. The thing is, the data that you get to put your report together comes from a variety of sources, Bank Negara being the principal contributor of that data. What is the nature of the relationship with Bank Negara? And what is the risk of them one day saying to you, sorry, Eric, I'm not going to be providing you any more data?
I think maybe if I may add a bit of background, right? I think over the last 25 years, I think CTOS is very much collating, right, information from public sources, right? Like for example, the public registries like ROC, Registrar of Companies, collating information from the newspapers, right, and these are very much litigation, bankruptcy, right, and also information coming from our subscribers themselves, right. In 2015, right, a significant milestone for the organization happened, right. We presented to Bank Negara our vision, right, and the value propositions that we have with information coming from Bank Negara, right, and the roadmap. And I believe, Bank Negara is felt that it's something that is valuable, right, and it will value add to the country as a whole.
Of course, it's about the credit credit worthiness
Creditworthiness.
of consumers as well as on corporations and SMEs. Yeah. So last couple of questions. We created what you guys for 215 million ringgit for just 70% of the company. That would have been quite a good valuation for the Chung brothers, I think, who started the business in 1990. Now, Credo's Bramal Vasudevan has talked about how he's willing to keep the business for 5 to 10 years over the long term, and then to realize some value after that period. The thing is, what is the thinking at this point in time? Would it be to get a public flotation and exit that way, or would it be to maybe do a trade sale to the experience of this world or to the FICOs of this world? Bearing in mind that right now, CTOS is very much a domestic business.
I believe, first things first, right, just to address the part about being a domestic business, right, I believe there is definitely some regional aspirations, right, which I can't share at the moment.
Well, it's taken 26 years for CTOS to come to this point in time, to deal with the central banks and to deal with the legal firms and to deal with the various agencies that provide the data. To get into, say, Jakarta or to Singapore or Bangkok, we've got to start dealings with a whole new bunch of central bankers, law firms, newspapers and classifieds, and is it going to be another 26 years?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think, right, there are different ways of actually growing regionally or even globally, right? I think one of the things is to have partnerships with global or regional players, right? I think that's one area, right? But back to your question, right? In terms of Credo's aspiration, right? Definitely, they have worked with me, right? In terms of carving out, right, a future growth path, and I think it looks bright at the moment.
Okay, well, good luck with the plan, and hopefully in a few years' time we'll be looking at you and maybe you'll be telling us that the CTOS score will be a mandatory requirement for all banks at giving out loans.
Definitely our aspiration in the short term.
Yeah. So what is the possibility of that?
Well, I believe so, right? I believe the possibility is there. I mean, if you look at it today, right, if we were to compare with more mature markets, FICO, for example, right, the partner that we are working with in terms of developing the CTOS score, right, is the gold standard over there in US, right? Nothing happens unless you have a good FICO score, right? And if you were to look at more mature markets like US, UK, right, even in certain parts of Asia, right, the adoption of a credit bureau score, right, is very, very prevalent, right? And I think Malaysia is heading towards that direction as well.
Absolutely, as we become a more developed economy. Well, thank you for spending time with us, Eric. Individual credit ratings are a normalcy in the US, but a very new phenomenon here in Malaysia. As the country further develops, there will come a time when each of us will be treated very differently by the banks. So the message from CTOS CEO Eric Chin is clear. The better the score, the better our financial treatment.